Hello. Today I'd like to talk about Jupiter's retrograde cycle. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about the three planets that are retrograde that will be dominating the energy of this summer. I'm Ramdas Sinclair, and I would like to thank you for watching this video. I hope you'll like and subscribe so we can stay in touch. So in the middle of May, Jupiter went retrograde, and it joined Venus and Saturn, who were also retrograding all within a few days of each other. Retrograde planets increase our feeling of stress and pressure in our daily lives. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the specifics of the Jupiter transit, and then I'll show you a graph about all three transits overlapping, and we can look a little bit about how the summer is likely to play out and how we can best manage this energy. So let's look at the Jupiter transit retrograde cycle. So it began on February 18th when Jupiter was at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. And then he moved forward up until May 14th, where he's stationed at 3 degrees of Capricorn. So as you know, a planet's stations are their most intense energy. So from May 10th to May 19th, we really felt Jupiter sitting in the same degree and turning into the reverse direction. Then he retrograded all the way back to 23 degrees of Sagittarius again, and he will reach that point on September 13th. And so from September 8th to September 18th, again, we have kind of an intense time period where he's changing directions. And finally, he moves forward again to 3 degrees of Capricorn, and he'll reach that point on December 6th. So we can see that the area of the zodiac from 23 degrees Sagittarius up until 3 degrees of Capricorn is getting 3 passes from the planet Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is a benefic planet, and Jupiter works by giving us results. So if we're wanting something, he teaches the lesson by giving us the object or the philosophy that we desire. And then through living and working with it, it's almost like experiential learning. Through that experience, we really can understand the pros and cons of our ideas and the ideologies. So we can say, well, what kind of ideas is he, sharing with us in Capricorn and Sagittarius? So Capricorn is his weakest sign, but Capricorn is where we consider not only our agenda, but our responsibility to the community. So what he's teaching us here is that it's not just about what I want or what you want, but we have to keep in mind the larger ideas that basically we are only as strong as the weakest part of our community. Now, interestingly enough, Saturn is retrograding in the early degrees of Capricorn. So both Jupiter and Saturn are really emphasizing this lesson that it's, what do they say? It's not about me, it's about we. That's the major lesson that's coming about. But then Jupiter goes back into Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a fire sign. And so Sagittarius is where we learn to move beyond our material connections and move towards a more spiritual direction. So it teaches us the value of those material goods. Now, the 2 lunar signs that are called nakshatras that this retrograde cycle is covering are Purva Ashada and Uttara Ashada. Now, in Purva Ashada, we have Jupiter ruling the sign and Venus ruling the lunar sign. Jupiter and Venus are the 2 gurus, and Venus teaches about the practicalities of daily life and how we have to have material stability. and Jupiter teaches about the higher wisdom of esoteric knowledge. So you see the bulk of his transit is in that in Sagittarius, and he in fact starts from that area that we have to balance our material needs and our day-to-day living experiences. We must have a stable platform for that so that we can move towards the higher goals of helping others and helping and learning the higher lessons of life. The second nakshatra is is Uttara Ashada, and this is ruled by the sun. Now, this is a sign that grants unchallengeable victory. But what they don't tell you is that it's about getting to the higher victory by doing a little austerity, or we call tapasya, which is a little suffering. And this is symbolized very beautifully by the planks of a very simple bed. It's just like a bed with planks on it, no comfort, everything. It's practical, but it's not really comfortable. So if we are willing to endure a little economization, a little suffering, a little discomfort, that's a better word, a little discomfort, then we realize that we don't need to have a lot of the luxuries and things we think we need. And by clearing the decks of all of those attachments, we can have time in our life and energy to explore higher ideals. And really, ultimately, it's a deeper connection. All the material attachments we have in the external world draw us out of ourselves. We're watching TV, we're shopping, we're doing all these things. We're worrying about what if something happens to my car? What's the latest fashion? What can I do in the external world? And these two signs are preparing us to move on a more inward journey where we're looking inside ourselves to be able to sit and be quiet and feel contentment arise within us, teaches us that we don't need external things to feel happy. In fact, all the happiness lies within. So this is the major lesson of this Jupiter retrograde cycle. Now, I have to talk about when these three all come together. So what I'd like to share with you now, this is actually from the software I use, Sri Jyoti Star. He does this wonderful grid that shows us when all the planets are retrograding. So throughout the whole year, we can see the name of the planets on the left, and then we see when they turn retrograde. Now, he has categorized them by their natural state. So Saturn is a malefic, and then Saturn has is a red color, and Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury are all natural benefics, so they're in green. But if you look at May, you see how all of these planets went retrograded at the same time. And then Mercury is going to come on June 17th, and then Venus will end his retrograde cycle on June 25th. But the other two, Jupiter and Saturn, are going to be right through, they're going to be retrograde. And then in September, on the 9th of September, you'll see that Mars will now go retrograde. So we're going to have a malefic retrograde active this year from basically May 10th all the way through November 13th. So let's talk about what that means. So I learned this lesson in the summer of 2016 because I started to track the shooting incidents. Because at that time we had Saturn and Mercury both retrograde, and Saturn was aspecting Jupiter. And what happened that summer was we had a huge spike in the number of mass shootings that occurred. This is when the Orlando nightclub shooting occurred. And I was thinking a lot about this, about what is going on? How do I see this in the chart? And what I finally realized is that planets that are retrograde are unsettling for us. Whether it's benefic or malefic nature, the planet moving backwards is in the process of rebalancing energy, and it's in the longer process of going over those degrees 3 times. So it's almost like having a deep tissue massage on that area. And so they really go in deep, they stir it up. Ultimately, it's very good for us, but we are just uncomfortable maybe for a couple days after the massage. So people are just not going to feel like themselves when we have multiple planets retrograding. And as you saw, we have many planets, like only 5 planets can go retrograde. And there, for a few days there in June, 4 of the 5 planets are retrograde. So it's important to study this and think about, larger than a specific chart, what is the whole overarching energy that we're going to experience. And I think we've already seen that as soon as the country opened up here in the US, we began to have shootings again. Unfortunately, we've already had multiple incidents of violence by police against people of color. This is the same pattern that was happening in 2016. And so I think we're revisiting that lesson. So what can we do? Well, the reason we study astrology is because we can see that this pattern is going to be pervasive. So it's like a weather report. They can see a storm front coming. They may not know individually, I can't tell from the transits how it's going to land in your life specifically, but I can know that we're all going to be weathering a pretty intense time during the summer. So I start to think about, how can I counterbalance it? Well, the first thing is, studying astrology tells us that, guess what? It's going to be a rough summer. So if you know the summer is going to be hot, you're going to take, you can take steps to prepare for it. You can, maybe get an air conditioner, or, prepare yourself for the long, hot summer, which is what we're coming into. How do we do that for this? It's all about anxiety. It's all about controlling your stress level and your anxiety. So one thing, do not overschedule yourself. Don't, if you don't have to do something and you don't really want to do something, avoid it. Just don't accept it. Don't take it in. We do have to do things we don't want to do. So you need to start a daily routine of taking your anxiety level, checking in with yourself in the morning. How do I feel? Take time to do 10 breaths where you just breathe in and just watch the breath come in and out of your body. And then wait, and you will feel a sense of relaxation and contentment arise within the core of your body. This is when you know you have got back to a place that we call centered or grounded. By establishing that every day, you're going to be more prepared to take on the stress and anxiety that's coming. If you go a few days without doing it and then do it, you'll see how much just like background anxiety you're accumulating, thanks in large part to these retrograde cycles. So that's what I'm really recommending everyone do. The other thing is, with this focus on service to the community, make sure that you are stable first, and then you can go into the community to help others. Additionally, please be careful. If someone is upset with you in the community, be compassionate, be nice, and the best thing is, don't engage. Smile at them and walk away if you can, so that you don't get into an altercation, because people are really not thinking clearly here. And you never know the circumstance of the person that, you're addressing. Especially now, we have to look at the record unemployment. We have to look at how many hundreds of thousands of people have died. That person could be, they may have just had a death of a friend. They may have had an acute stressor that has arisen among all of this background stress. The other advice I give is, if you're out doing your day, say you're going shopping and you're there and you find yourself getting annoyed with everyone that comes around, just what I call cash in. Just, get your stuff, get out of there, leave, and give yourself a break. Recognize that you can't push yourself right now. Wait until the planets start going direct. You'll be able to catch up on the things you need to catch up on. I hope this has been helpful, and I wish you all the best. Don't want anyone to be afraid, but I want you to really be aware of this. And that way we can reduce the suffering within ourselves and within our families. Thank you very much. Namaste.